You try to finish all of your assignments, finish all of your tasks, and just try to make yourself busy, occupied, so that you won't have to deal with the pain that is there just waiting for you. Hey guys, welcome back to Small Talk, small conversations with huge impact. My name is Alec and I'm your host. And before anything else, I would like to greet each and every one of you. Welcome to the show. I hope that you learned something today. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, then I hope that you learned something today and you enjoy this episode. Make sure that you check the other episodes as well because they have a lot of tools and techniques that can help you make better decisions for yourself and for the people around you. And if you're an avid listener of the podcast, welcome back. I really missed you guys. I hope that you, although I just uploaded an episode before this one, I hope you didn't miss me that much. But yeah, I really missed doing this podcast with you. And right now, I'm welcoming you back. I hope that you continue to support the podcast, support every single content that I put out. And I just want to say that I really appreciate you guys. And you guys are the reason why I am still doing this stuff. So thank you so much. I just want to give a huge shout out for the people who are sharing the podcast on their Facebook, on their Twitter, on their Instagram, and even TikTok. I just want to say I really appreciate you guys because the podcast is growing so much because of you guys. And lastly, for the people who are listening on Apple Podcasts, then please consider giving this podcast a rating and review because it really helps the podcast. It helps the podcast. It helps the podcast grow more and more because if I get more reviews and it will be more recommended more to other podcast listeners out there in the world. So please, it just takes 5 minutes. Leave a podcast, leave a comment, rating and review, and I just want to say that I love reading your reviews. For example, Cedric05 said, I'm thankful that I found this podcast. The contents are all good and helps me to be always motivated. Now, this is my go-to podcast. Looking for more podcast episodes to listen to. Thank you so much, Cedric. I appreciate the comment. I appreciate you. And I just want to say thank you for leaving a 5-star rating and review for the podcast. So, that's all for this episode. Okay, now let's go on and talk about the best way to deal with pain. Now, I saw this video on TikTok. It's from Matt Kama. I really love this guy. I don't know if he's living in the States, but I love his videos. I follow him everywhere. And there was this one video where he wrote that there are 3 ways to deal with your pain. And today we're going to talk all about that. And before we actually get to the best way to deal with your pain, let's talk about some other stuff that other people do in dealing with pain. And honestly, I'm one, and to be frank, I'm also one of the people who does this on a regular basis, but we're all humans. We tend to forget. And what's important is we remind ourselves what we need to do when we are faced with pain, with struggles, with disappointments, so that we can be more, so we could help ourselves and improve ourselves and take care of ourselves. So the first way to deal with pain is numb your pain. A lot of people do this, and there are a lot of ways that you could numb your pain. One of them is alcohol. As some of you may know, if you follow me for a very long time, even before the podcast, I love alcohol. I enjoy drinking alcohol. It's like my best way to spend time with my friends. I just love the feeling of just, being young, drunk, and all that stuff. But when you're actually dealing with pain, but when you're in a situation where you're experiencing a struggle, ginagawa ng karamihan, inom tayo. Let's drink out. Let's go out. Let's drink. Well, apparently now you can't drink out, but You still buy beer, buy alcohol in your own house, and you get drunk by your own. That way, you numb the feeling of pain because your body now focuses just being drunk, just dealing with your drunkenness. You try to numb the pain, like, I don't want to feel the pain, so I'm just drinking it out, right? Another way that you can numb the pain is taking drugs, taking substance, doing drugs. There are a lot of drugs that, you know what? Let me just be frank with you guys. And I don't share much of my personal background, but if you guys know where I'm coming from, I think it could help you better understand where I'm coming from. But I think if you understand, but I think if I share some of my personal moments with you, I think that you guys can understand where I'm coming from. So before, I don't have a great, I don't have so back in 2017, I was 21 years old, right? And this was my first ever heartbreak. I experienced my first ever heartbreak. And when you experience your first heartbreak, it feels like everything that you know means nothing. Every value, every principle that you know in life doesn't fucking matter. So what I did, and I consciously chose to go that path, is to, you know what, I'm gonna try all this stuff out. Not and okay, that sounded wrongly, but and fortunately I didn't get to try some of the bigger drugs, but I've tried some of the drugs. But I was really into alcohol that time because it numbs the pain. You're just having fun. You're just feeling happy with the company that you have. You're just drunk. You don't remember what's hurting you. Sometimes, siyempre, umiiyak ka sa inuman, di ba? Pero most of the time, you're just numb. And that's the same with drugs. But one thing that I've learned is that the more we use drugs or alcohol to cope up with our pain, the more we destroy our bodies. And what I learned from that experience is that when I'm trying to numb the emotional pain with drugs or alcohol, it just made the problem worse. One of the reasons that many people use drugs or alcohol to cope up with the pain, it's because we feel that the pain is overwhelming. Like we can't handle the pain. And all we can think is, how do I stop hurting? How can I stop hurting? How can I make it stop? That's all the thought that plays in our head. And sometimes alcohol, drugs, and any other stuff that makes you numb can seem to be an effective way to reduce the pain that you're feeling, but it's actually a bad idea. And I've learned this rebound effect. The rebound effect tells us that if we use painkillers to stop the pain, we're just setting up ourselves for needing more of that thing that numbs the pain once the effect has worn off. Mawala yung hangover mo, minom ka ngayong gabi, bukas wala na yung hangover mo, what would you want to do again? You want to get drunk again. And then you get an hangover again. You treat your hangover, but wala ka ng tama, you don't feel drunk again, you want to drink again. You get caught up in this vicious cycle that you just want more and more and more to numb the pain. But we all know that everything that is too much will hurt our bodies in the long run. And it actually makes us weak, like emotionally and physically. And another reason why numbing agents are making our situation worse is that once we get drunk, right, there's a certain guilt or shame that we feel because we know we're not doing the right thing. Everybody knows that when you're drunk, you enjoyed last night, but there's a little bit part of you just regrets being too hungover or having too much to drink, and we feel shameful about ourselves. And now we're shameful and at the same time feeling painful. And then once we do it again, we become more shameful and we feel more guilty, and we all have this negative feelings that is added to the pain that is not going anywhere because it's still there. We just numb their pain, try to put our bodies to react to something different than to just react on the pain that we have to feel. That is the first way to deal with pain. And I have my share of numbing the pain. Actually, sometimes I still do it with, I get a drink of beer and I just try to sleep it off to make sure that I don't feel the pain. I'm scared of the pain. I'm feeling overwhelmed with the pain. I try to do that. But the next day, I instantly regret it because the pain's still there. I just didn't felt it last night. That's what I was feeling. That's what I was thinking. And that's one way to deal with pain. We numb it, right? And so the second way that we could deal with pain is to avoid it. We avoid it by looking the other way. We fill our lives with busy schedules, with workloads from our career paths, our jobs. We work hard, so hard, to avoid the pain, to avoid dealing with the pain. For example, you lost your grandmother. So what you do is you don't want to accept it. So you just work and work and work and work. Try to avoid that feeling of pain, that feeling of loss. You try to finish all of your assignments, finish all of your tasks, and just try to make yourself busy, occupied, so that you won't have to deal with the pain that is there just waiting for you. And I feel like when we are avoiding pain, we're looking to the left side when the pain is at the right side. And no matter how long you look at the left side, the pain in the right side won't go away. Once you look back, and you can never ever hold yourself to always look at the left side. Yung mangangawit ka, mapapagod ka, and titingin ka pa rin sa kanan. And so you're trying your best to not look at the pain, not face the pain that you have to deal with, but it's not gonna go anywhere. It's just there. It won't go anywhere until you learn how to deal with it. And this also includes when you just want to sleep all day. Constant napping. When you sleep, you feel like you don't have any problem. Well, guess what? If you sleep right now, if you sleep on your problems, of course, rest is important. If you can't deal with it right now, then that's fine. But if you're constantly sleeping through your pain, sleeping and constantly napping just to make sure that you're not going to have to deal with the pain, when you wake up, it's still there, waiting for you to deal with it. It's just there. And no matter how many times you sleep, you could sleep for the whole week, the problem will still be there. And that's one way to deal with pain. And a lot of us, including me, I'm not going to sit on my high horse and say, that's wrong. The things that I'm saying is the things that I have done myself. And I constantly do. But I try my best. And I still sometimes do. But I try my best to figure out, this is wrong. This is how to deal with it. This is what I need to remind myself. That kahit anong tulog ko, no matter how many times, how long I sleep, the pain that I need to deal with is going to be there. And so that leads me to the third way and the best way and the only way that we should deal with pain is to face it. And I know it's really hard to understand. You need to face the pain, right? It's better. Mas madali yung uminom ka, take some drugs, tulog ka, watch some series, fill yourself with work, magbasa ka ng libro, maglaro ka ng video games, you play video games, You spend time with your friends, hanging out, being drunk and stupid. It's easier that way, right? But dealing with pain takes up a lot of courage and a lot of strength. But no matter how hard it is, the only way we could deal with it is to face it. So, how do we face the pain? We face the pain by just letting ourselves experience what we have to experience, acknowledging that it is painful. I don't want to avoid it. I don't want to numb the feeling. Just acknowledge that it's really painful. Cry when you feel you want to cry. Be sad when you feel you want to be sad. If you're anxious, then just let yourself be anxious. One of my pillars in self-help is the backwards law. When you're trying your best to achieve a positive experience, that itself is a negative experience. But when you try to acknowledge and accept the negative experiences that is happening into your life, that itself is a positive experience. And you can never deal with the pain if you don't acknowledge it. You don't accept that this shit is really happening. And it's really painful. And that's okay. Because when you are feeling pain, that means that you're going through a change that God wants you to experience. You're going through a change that the universe is pushing you so that you get back on the track that you need to be on. And pain, it doesn't matter if we don't like it, don't want it. Pain is the only way that we could find our purpose. Pain gives us purpose. Only through pain can we find ourselves. Because if there is no pain, if there is no suffering, then everything would just seem so plain. Won't make any sense. Trust me, the happy days are much better to experience because of the pain that you've gone through. You'll be able to appreciate the grace and the blessings God wants you to experience. Once you've seen how much painful, how much hurtful to deal with the struggles that you have. Pain is something that makes our lives better. Whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, it teaches us something. It teaches us a lesson that we won't learn in our happy days. And our character will be tested only in the harshest times. It's easy to be a good person. It's easy to stay true to yourself. It's easy to love and care and show kindness to other people when you're at your highs. When you're happy, when there's so many good things happening in your life. It's so easy to be kind to other people. But when we're experiencing pain, struggles, and disappointments, everything just becomes so hard. And that's the real test to our characters. And so how do we face our pain? How do we face the pain? Well, there are a lot of ways that you could face your pain. I personally try to write it down or put it in a podcast or put it in the video, right? Because as of now, it's really hard to have human connection, and I crave for human connection, but we got to deal with it. With the pandemic going on, we just got to deal with what we have. And what we have is ourselves. We might not have someone to talk to, like physically, but we have ourselves. And sometimes the battles that life gives us, we got to face them alone. No help from other people. We got to help ourselves. And some of the practice that I do is sometimes I write it on my journal. I put it in a podcast. That's one way. Another way is reading self-help books. When you read self-help books, usually the introduction tells their background, their credentials, why their self-help book might make a difference, all of them have the same pattern. They all start with the pain that they have to go through. It just makes you realize that it's normal to feel pain. Because these successful people who have written books, who have appeared in a lot of interviews, experience pain, maybe much worse pain than what you're experiencing right now. And it just gives you a sense of connection to the whole world, to the people around the world. That you might think that your pain is personal, but it's actually universal. Might go in a different form, but the pain that you're feeling is what most of us are feeling as well. It just humbles you. It reminds you that you're not going through this alone. We're all learning in this life. And the pain that you're feeling right now, and we all have to go through the different pains that is laid out for us in our lives. So that's another one. You can read self-help book. Another way to deal with pain is practice mindfulness. Acknowledge and accept that this is actually happening to you. You might not have control over some of the things that is happening in your lives, but you have the control over your responses. If you may not have a sense of control in your life, you can always practice deep breathing. When you learn to focus on your breathing, it helps you give a sense of control. Okay, I control this. I control my thoughts. I control my emotions. I control my actions. And it's not an illusion. It helps you be mindful of where you are, what's happening in your life, and you can now focus on the root of that pain. And only when we find the root, the deep meaning behind the pain, can we feel fully healed. And it takes a long process. Sometimes, and the duration of dealing with pain varies. It depends on one person to another. But we all got to remember that the pain exists for a reason. We just need to figure that out. And one way to do that is to be mindful. Just when sometimes it gets overwhelming. Most of the times it gets overwhelming because you're focusing on the what could be's, the what should be's, the what ifs. And those are some scenarios in our minds that won't actually exist. What we need to do is to be mindful to what is happening right now. Focus on the things that you're seeing, things that you're hearing, the things that you're smelling. Bring yourself back. Bring your thoughts back to what is happening right now. Notice how every single thing around you is happening. It helps you regain yourself and take yourself back to the present. Because tomorrow is never promised. What we have is right now. And right now, you may feel sad, you may feel pissed, you may feel mad. Just feel it. Just go through what you're feeling. Acknowledge the things that you're feeling. The more you repress your emotions, the more it just becomes worse. May it be through numbing it or avoiding it, it just becomes worse. So make sure that you find your way on how you could deal with pain. And if you can't deal with yourself, there are a lot of people that are willing to help you. Sometimes you just got to reach out for them. Go to a therapist. I know there are a lot of online counseling going on right now. So if you can't deal with it yourself, you don't know how to deal with the pain that you're experiencing, then go ask these people who you think that could help you out. Trust me, there are a lot of people willing to help you out. It's just that with what's happening right now in the world, we often forget that we sometimes think that a lot of people are not within our reach, right? But everything's on the cell phone, or everything's in social media right now. Just send them a message and you'll be surprised with the help that you can get if you try to reach out. So don't numb it, don't avoid it, and face it. Try reading a self-help book. Try mindfulness. try seeing a therapist or a counselor. Just make sure that you face the pain that you gotta face. And that's all for this episode. I hope that you learned something. I hope that I made myself clear. If you happen to enjoy the podcast, if you connect with anything that I've said, then write your insights and tag me on Instagram. It's at Small Talk Podcast, and I'll repost them. I love seeing you guys there. And I hope you learned something from this episode. I hope that you enjoy it. Again, if you enjoy this podcast, make sure that you leave this podcast a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Spotify. Follow me on TikTok, IG, whatever. And that's all. Again, this is Alec Cuenca, and this is Small Talk, Small Conversations with Huge Impact. Talk to you guys next episode. Peace. Bye-bye.